Okay, welcome back to creating our WPF app, making it look a little modern using MahApps.Metro and all of their styling and different controls that they provide in that library. And before, we've been building a budget tracker, and that's what we're going to continue doing. And today we're going to talk about flyouts in MahApps. And this is a custom control from the library that we can use to, in our case, at least for now, what I want to do is I want to display some kind of notification message to the user whenever they create their budget and it says budget created. But maybe you can see the possibilities with the flyout once you get a grasp on what it can do, which is pretty powerful. And if you like this kind of content, feel free to subscribe, and that way you can follow along with different videos I make about anything in programming. Nothing's really off limits here. It's just as I learn it, I like to share it with you guys. And that way, it not only helps me to teach it, I guess, but it helps you to hopefully learn it from me. And I also have a playlist of all of these WPF videos if you want to follow along from the very start. And then the code will be down below in the description on my GitHub repo if you get lost or you want to double check what I've done. But where we left off, if you remember, we added some functionality to this application, particularly a model where if we go ahead and add a budget, we can save that budget in an object and potentially in the future store it in a database. So let's say my budget's $1,200 and I'll hit create. It creates the budget, but we have no way of knowing that, right? And maybe something I want to do also is have this collapse after it creates the budget and then send a notification or show a notification to the user up here that says budget created. And to do that, we're going to use something called a flyout. And if we look at MahApps' website, here is an example of a flyout coming in from the right. So you can see this pane just pops over and it hovers over all of the existing XAML and elements here. And you can put your own controls inside of this flyout. So if you wanted to, you can actually put a little form, or you can put checkboxes for different settings. Maybe that's something we can do. We can add a settings button, and then a flyout comes out from the right, and they can check off different things if they want to. But for now, we're just going to keep it simple and use it to display a notification. But hopefully you can see the potential uses for this. And so instead of coming out from the right, also you can have it coming out from any direction. So left, right, top, and bottom, as you see here. And in our case, I want the message to come down from the top and share it to the user and then disappear after a few seconds. We don't need the user to click the back arrow. I don't want them to worry about that and get annoyed. I want it to just disappear after a few seconds and they just continue on using the app. And so if we go to our XAML here, I'm just going to put this at the very bottom because really, or maybe just above the status bar in this parent grid here. But really, you can put this thing anywhere. It does not matter where you end up putting the XAML code because when it is opened or when it's displayed, it'll only show where you position it. So if you say I want it to go at the top, it'll position it to fly out from the top. You don't have to specify in the XAML itself where you want it to lay. So it's kind of nice. So I'm going to say in the Mah namespace, we want the flyouts control. And then inside of this particular element is going to be all of our different flyouts. So if we had more than one, we'd put each one inside of this flyouts control. And then we're going to go ahead and say Mah flyout. We're going to go ahead and create our own flyout. And the first thing I want to do is I want to give this a name. So we can say this is the update flyout. Let's give it a width, and you can play around with these numbers. I might play around with it after seeing it here, but I'm going to put 1,000 pixels for now. For now, let's put a header and say test. And lastly, the position of this flyout, this is where you can choose where you want it to come from. And like I said, in our case, I'm going to have it come from the top. And then inside of the flyout control, you can actually put any other controls that you want. So if you want to put some checkboxes or text blocks, or text boxes either, you can do that. But in my case, I'm just going to put a text block, and just say testing. And let's give this a bigger font size so we can see it. And I'm just doing this now just to play around with it and show you what it originally looks like. And then we'll add some more properties to these controls to make it do exactly what we want. So let's start this. And actually, I guess one thing I did forget, we don't have any way of it opening. We have no way of telling it to go ahead and open. And so I'll go ahead and create a temporary button. Probably put it back up here. And then when it's clicked, we can say open that flyout or display that flyout. So we can say flyout. And let's give this a click event and call it flyout. This is just temporary flyout. I cannot type as usual. Click. Or just button click. That's fine. So when that button's clicked, I want this to be shown. So we can go to our click event and say this flyout dot is open is going to be set to equal true. So now let's start it. We'll hit that button to show the flyout. And here you can see the header that we gave it, testing. Or no, the header's test. This text block right here is testing. And then we have the up arrow. So if we click this, it then disappears. And we can keep doing this back and forth. Just like that. So there's a few things I want to do now. I want this to, instead of say testing, I want it to say added budget or budget created, something like that. I don't want to show this arrow because I mentioned before, I want this to just automatically disappear after a few seconds. And we don't need the heading either. It's kind of unnecessary when everything we need to say is going to be in that text box. So let's do those few things. Let's go back to our XAML. Let's change header to just an empty string. Let's give this flyout an auto close interval. And this is in milliseconds. So if I put 2000, that is 2 seconds. And then you can also say auto close or is auto close enabled. We'll set that to true. So if you just have this particular property and you don't have this one as well, I misspelled true, this will not auto close. You have to have both of these, or, you know, is auto close enabled equal to true at least for this to auto close. So now if we run it, we're still going to see that up arrow to make it disappear. We can fix that here in a second. But now if we run it, after a few seconds, it goes ahead and it disappears, just like that. And let's turn this to false because I want to see it. And the reason being, I want to center our testing text a bit. So let's give this text block a width as well. And I'm just going to say 500 pixels for now. And let's give the text alignment and make it center. And if we look, my guess is there's an element, I don't quite know, but there's something right here to which our text block is only allowed to take up this space here. So what I want to do is I want to give it some negative margin so it's more in the center. And here we can say margin, and the very first one is the leftmost, so we can put, this is where you probably want to play around. I'll put 250 for now, and I got to put zeros for the rest. 0, 0, like that. Close, maybe like negative 275 might be a little better. Okay, and let's also give it some padding so it's not up against the top of, I don't know, 10 or so. And now it's kind of in the middle, or as best as we can get it, just playing around with these margins. Okay, cool. So now the big things we need to do is we need to remove this close button here, right? And we also need this to say created budget. And we need this to happen once the budget is obviously created. So there's a few things we still need to do, but let's make the auto close enable back to true and go to our code behind. So right after we add the budget, first off, I want to make that flyouts property close button visibility equal to visibility dot hidden. So we don't want to show that up arrow anymore. Next, I want to make that form disappear. So this budget stack panel, we can take the visibility and turn it back to collapsed at that point. So let's do that. Dot visibility is also equal to visibility dot collapsed. And then we can say update flyout dot is open. I just saw it. Is open is set to true. And now we can also get rid of that temporary button that we created right here. And we can now say in the text of that text block, budget created. All right, so let's see if this works. I'll start the app, create a budget. We'll give it a start date, an end date, and an amount. We'll hit create budget. And here we go, budget created. And it disappears and the form is no longer visible. All right, so that's all I wanted to show in this video. Hopefully you're enjoying it and having fun following along. This has been fun for me, and I hope to see you in the next video.